A diagnosis of HIV infection or AIDS is a life-changing event with multiple and profound effects on the whole person. HIV is the world's leading infectious killer. One of the effects of HIV on those infected is immune system failure. This results in a compromising of the affected person's ability to fend off infections. AIDS refers to the advanced stages of HIV infection. With the significant advances in medical management, both HIV and AIDS can now largely be considered to be chronic illnesses in the developed world. As you will see in this video, a diagnosis of HIV or AIDS can bring particular implications that may differ from many other chronic health problems. The physical manifestations of HIV/AIDS cause physical pain and suffering, as well as physical disability. People with HIV/AIDS are also prone to depression, anxiety, anger, shame, guilt, and hopelessness, all impacting on their psychological well-being. The stigma associated with HIV/AIDS can lead to the person being rejected and isolated, or can lead to the person self-isolating or other negative impacts on the social well-being of the person. And when it comes to the spiritual dimension, people diagnosed with HIV/AIDS may be particularly prone to spiritual struggles as they search for meaning in the context of the illness, perhaps face stigmatization from some religious groups, and have multiple assumptions about themselves and their world challenged. Because of the potential impact of HIV/AIDS on the whole person, it is imperative that health professionals and mental health clinicians adopt a holistic approach to the care of persons with HIV/AIDS. Research indicates that spirituality may be an invaluable source of strength, hope, meaning, and psychological well-being for people with HIV/AIDS. Spirituality can enable them to transcend what they cannot change. In fact, Sowell and his research associates call spirituality a resistance resource for those living with HIV. This video explores the place of spirituality in the life of persons diagnosed with HIV/AIDS. To help us understand this, Robin, a woman who was diagnosed with HIV infection 18 years ago, and Blake, a professional who works with clients with HIV/AIDS, will be featured.
I guess the connection I see between spirituality and HIV/AIDS lies more in the manner in which people are able to cope with their diagnosis of HIV. And this is not to say this belief in a God, but a belief in something outside of themselves. And so what I see is it's more common in people that are long-term survivors to have a different spiritual connection to their illness, really. And I'm not sure if that's related to the fact that during the early days of HIV, they were seeing all their friends die, they were expected to die, and so they became, what's the word I'm looking for? They were at ease with the fact that they might die. And then so that there was that spiritual connection that they made with their illness. I see someone's spiritual well-being and the way that they cope with their HIV more related to their spiritual maturity. But I find that people that are in tune with their spiritual side do have better coping mechanisms to deal with their diagnosis.
Blake mentions spirituality as being connected to how people cope with HIV or AIDS. He also mentions a connection with God or transcendence, both associated with descriptions of spirituality in the literature. Blake also mentions the issue of being faced with the prospect of one's own mortality, which is a time when spirituality has generally been noted to emerge to the forefront. In addition to being aware of the concept of spirituality and how it is described in the literature, and because of the wide variety of personal conceptions of spirituality, clinicians should be aware that they need to begin with asking the client what his or her concept of spirituality is.
Spirituality means to me basically the core of myself, everything about it, what I believe, what gives me peace, life lessons learned, and learning from those and adapting them to my life to make better choices. Just a sense, of course, of like inner peace, and I think that's pretty much makes me a better person, my full potential of who I can be. Spirituality is a huge resource for me, a great resource for me, because I feel that it's kind of kept me grounded. It's kind of kept me realizing that this is what it is, to accept it for what it is, but to also make it better for myself. I believe my spiritual well-being I find it at a very good place right now compared to all those years ago when I was diagnosed with my illness. Becoming more mature, becoming more aware, thinking outside the box, and just tapping into, how can I say, tapping into my compassion and understanding of how things affect me, becoming more self-aware. It helps me in my life because I know that I'm the kind of person that thinks that things happen for a reason. And so I've chosen to help others, and they help me as well. So it's a big learning process, and the giving back makes me feel that very contented inside. I've done something good, not just for somebody else, but for myself as well.
Robin mentions that one of her spiritual beliefs is a tenet that everything happens for a reason. And she goes on to imply that her illness has been a catalyst for her helping others. This provides a source of great contentment for her. A client's spiritual beliefs can be helpful in assisting them to cope with and to come to terms with the diagnosis of HIV/AIDS. For some people, spirituality may be intricately connected to a particular religious faith, a common expression of spirituality. In that case, religious beliefs may also be present. HIV/AIDS research and clinical experience indicate that religious beliefs can be a source of comfort and strength, or alternatively, it can create pain, struggle, or isolation. It is therefore incumbent upon the clinician to assess the impact of clients' religious beliefs in order to help them deal with any struggles that they may be experiencing.
I think one of the big distresses that I see from people that have religious beliefs, less so in spiritual beliefs, but in religious beliefs, are the belief in a vindictive God, and where HIV and AIDS impacts the gay community a lot more than other communities. There's this belief that I'm being punished for being homosexual, and thus I've gotten this illness. And I think there's a lot of people who have a hard time grappling and finding that balance between their faith and their belief that they are also being punished for their who they are.
The search for meaning and purpose, a universal spiritual need, often comes to the forefront during times of adversity in people's lives. The